Hi, hello. Today we will be ranking the 52 books I read in 2025. Now, before we start, just blanket disclaimer. What I say does not matter. Like, this is just one person's opinion in the whole wide world. If I loved a book you hated, or if I hated a book you loved, it truly does not matter. If you do not like what I'm saying, if you do not like my opinions or my taste in books, feel free to just click out. Nobody's forcing you to watch this video. But if you do like my taste in books or anything else about me, welcome. Hi, I'm planning to mostly post book content. I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, both young adult and adult. I'm also planning to post sporadic videos about some of my other hobbies like crocheting or exploring Seoul. So if you're interested in that sort of laid back, mostly book focused content, feel free to stick around. And now a short explanation of the tiers. On the very bottom tier, we have just a bunch of question marks, meaning what happened with this book, what happened with the plot, what happened with the characters, what was the author thinking, sometimes even why is this book famous. Those are the main thoughts I have whenever I finish a book that I didn't like or a book I was disappointed with. So that is why on the very bottom tier we just have a bunch of question marks. And on the second tier we have sure I see it, which is short for it's not my type, but I kind of see it. And this tier will be for books that I didn't really enjoy, but there were aspects that I liked. And I could see why some people, especially people that have different genre or writing style preferences, oh my god, why can't I not speak? Writing style preferences that me might enjoy. So, for example, I read mostly fantasy. I don't read a lot of lit fic. So maybe if a book that I didn't like was lit fic, but I still kind of enjoyed it, I might put it in this tier. If I was a lit fic enjoyer, I might have liked that book much more than I did. Okay, now on the very middle tier, we have lukewarm is still warm. This tier is for books that were fine. I liked them. I had a good time. But, they weren't amazing. They weren't life changing. Like 3.5 ish books. And on the fourth tier, we have I Kill a Spider for You. I kill a spider for these books if they asked. I wouldn't kill a man. It's not that far. But I would kill a spider. And coming from a person that is scared of anything that has more than two legs, that is a huge deal. That is a declaration. I hope you guys understand how big of a deal a spider is for me. And now on the very top tier, we have Light of My Life. These are for the books that were the creme de la creme of the year, the books that changed me, the books that made my year. Essentially, my favorite books of the year in a single tier. Okay, so those are the tiers, pretty self explanatory. Also, it's a new day, which is why I have a new outfit on. But before we start the ranking, let me just mention that I will try my best not to spoil anything, and I won't really be giving in-depth plot summaries either. So I'll just mostly be talking about my overall thoughts on a book, and I'll mention some keywords about the plot, like, oh, it's a heist story, or it's a murder mystery, things like that. Okay, so, yep, I think that's all. Yeah. Let us finally start the ranking. And the books here aren't in chronological order, but I do remember what book I read last of 2025, and it was Artificial Condition, which is the second book in the Murderbot series, and this is going in Lukewarm is Still Warm. I read the first book in the series not last year, 2 years ago in 2024. And I think I'd put that one in I Kill a Spider for You, but with Artificial Condition, the thing about this book is that none of the ensemble cast that I loved in the first book, none of them are in this one. We have a whole new cast of characters, and they were fine, but just I was missing the dynamic and the characters that we got to meet and the relationships we got to build in the first book. So the lack of that in this one was a bit disappointing, which is why it is going in lukewarm is still warm. I am still planning to continue the series though, so I'll update you guys on what I think about the next books in the series. Ooh, next, The Last Hour Between Worlds by Melissa Caruso. This is going in Love of My Life. This, okay, if you liked Gideon the Nines, if you, like me, have a locked tomb shaped hole in your heart, read this book. Read this book. This is a fantasy book. This is part of a series, but it can fully just be read as a standalone, and it is set in a super interesting fantasy world that is slightly confusing at first, but the more you read it, the more you start to get it. There's a sapphic enemies to lovers romance. There's funny banter. There's some really nice humor and sarcasm, and the story is brutal at parts, but it is also so funny and heartwarming. It just reminded me of reading Gideon the Nines for the first time so much. And I just had so much fun with this book. Please read this. Oh, also the main character of this book is a mom a new mom who is actually on maternal leave at the moment, which is something I've never seen before in a fantasy book. So that was super new and a detail that I really appreciated seeing. So our first Love of My Life book is The Last Hour Between Worlds. Oh, and we have our next Love of My Life book right here actually. And it is Howl's Moving Castle. I loved the movie since the first time I watched it, which is like more than a decade ago, I think. But I finally picked up the book last year, and okay, if you like me have been putting off reading this book because you love the movie so much, you have to read it. And even if you hated the movie, read this book. It's so different, but not different enough that it's completely unrecognizable. But still has the same elements of whimsy and imagination and fantasy and just childhood nostalgia from the movie, but it also goes much more in depth with the magic and the plot and our characters' sort of inner worlds and their relationships. So Howl's Moving Castle, so much fun. It is a middle grade, but honestly, it didn't really feel childish or anything. And so if you're looking for just a super quick read, I definitely recommend. And our next book, we have 반지수의 책그림, which is going in I'd Kill a Spider for You. So I actually don't know if this has been translated yet, but this is an essay book. No, not essay. Sort of like a memoir and like a nonfiction book / collection of essays. What am I even saying? But the interesting thing about this book is that this is by the cover artist of Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookstore. The artist is called Banjisu. She's done actually a lot of book covers for very famous Korean and Japanese sort of cozy / cozy fantasy books. And this book is all about her thoughts on drawing, on creativity, on reading, and how to read different things and also sort of create a life that is centered around just books and consuming books, but also doing things, creating things related to books. If you're a book lover, if you're a bookworm, I highly recommend. Once again, I do not know if this has been translated. I'll put the information somewhere around the screen. But, if this is available to you in any way, I highly recommend you pick this up. Oh, and there are illustrations scattered throughout that the author did herself. And her art style is just so heartwarming and nostalgic. Okay. Ooh, oh, and because she's the cover artist of Welcome to the Hyunamdong Bookstore, let's just also rank that book while we're at it. And that book is also going in I Kill a Spider for You. Now, keep in mind, I am Korean, I speak Korean, so I read this in the original version. Or no, I listened to this. I listened to the audiobook of the original Korean version, and it was an audiobook done by Millie Seoje, which is a it's a book subscription service here in Korea, and they had like a graphic audio thing with this book, which is the sort of audiobooks that have, soundtracks and a whole voice acting cast for it. And oh, it was an amazing experience. I really loved this book. If and this book is so famous, everybody knows what it's about. It's so heartwarming. If you are just feeling burnt out, or if you're feeling sort of out of love with humanity, read this. It's pretty short, but it will make your months, if not your year, maybe. Maybe this could be your favorite book of 2026. Who knows? Mm. Ooh, next up we have Cold Clay, but this is actually the second book in a series. The first book should be here somewhere. Where is the first book? Where is the first book of this series? What? Okay, for some reason I cannot find the first book of this series here. So let's just rank this one. But this is Cold Clay. This is part of a series of essentially Zootopia meets Agatha Christie murder mysteries. So uh, this whole series is just a collection of mysteries set in a small forest town, except everybody's an animal. It's extremely cozy. The murder mysteries are dumb, but that's sort of the point of things. And once again, I read the first book in the series. I cannot find it right now. And the first book, I think I put in I Kill a Spider for You just because the vibes were immaculate. If you're ever craving a cozy fantasy for autumn, this series, the series that Cold Clay isn't, I think the series is called Shady Hollow. The vibes are immaculate. There's just so much, so many descriptions of like, oh, the leaves falling or the colors of the treetops changing, stuff like that. The vibes are immaculate. And the first book, Shady Hollow, the mystery wasn't that bad, which is why I put the first book in I Kill a Spider for You. But this book number two, the sequel, Cold Clay, I think I have to put it in lukewarm is still warm because the the mystery in this was just bad. It was so bad. At least the first book, it was like Scooby Doo levels of mystery. You know, we knew the villain was a villain, but they put on a mask. They had a fun. They tried to do a twist, but this book was just the villain had the words "I am the killer" stamped across your forehead. It was just a bit too much. Um, I did still enjoy the vibes. So if you want a cozy mystery book, this is a good one. Pick this up. Oh, next we have Our Wives Under the Sea. This is also going in Love of My Life. This this is a lyrical sapphic spec fic book. What more could I ask for? That's just all my favorite things rolled into one. This book is tragic, but it's also beautiful and so romantic. And yeah, if you loved, oh, actually, if you loved, This Is How You End the Time More, this has a pretty similar vibe. So if you liked that book, also read this one. But yeah, I loved this one. I fell in love with Julia Armfield's writing, and I'm definitely going to be picking up her other books this year. Ooh, our next book is The Listeners. This is going in I Kill a Spider for You. This is set in a hotel during like World War II, I think. And it feels like the Grand Budapest Hotel, but with a bit of magical realism mixed in. I loved the main character. She's headstrong, she's stubborn, but she's just so magnetic. I loved her. I also loved the hotel setting. It's very, very atmospheric, and I was this close to rewatching the Grand Budapest Hotel. So yeah, I love this book. Next up we have the summer book. This is also going in I Kill a Spider for You. This is by Tove Jansson, the writer of The Movements, and this is just a collection of moments in an island off the coast of Finland, set in summer, about a grandma and her granddaughter, and it's just a collection of sweet, sweet daily moments in their life. And I read this on a trip during the summer, and it was just truly the perfect book for that occasion. It describes summer in a very realistic but also nostalgic way. Like, it made me miss my Finland summer island home, which I've never even been to Finland, but it made me homesick for a home I've never had, which is a very special feeling to get from a book. So just put this on your summer TBR. I highly recommend it. It's also pretty short, if I'm remembering correctly. Ooh, next up you have Emily Wilde. I I actually read the entire Emily Wilde trilogy this year, so let's rank them all together. The first book is going in I Kill a Spider for You. Amazing. I have some notes, but honestly, it was an amazing, cozy fantasy book, perfect for winter. I loved the depiction of fairies. I liked the relationship. Book number two, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. Wait, no. Is book two Compendium of Lost Tales? No, book two is Map of the Otherlands, right? Book two is going in lukewarm, is still warm. It was fine. It was a good time, but it wasn't amazing. Book three, Compendium of Lost Tales, is going in sure, I see it. Because what was going on with the romance? I liked the romance in Encyclopedia of Fairies, but by book three, we lost plot. We fully lost the plot with the plot itself, but also the romance. Because Emily, come on. If you're just constantly thinking that your fiance is terrifying, break up. Maybe you just don't belong together. You don't have to be with an extremely terrifying being. If you keep thinking that he is extremely terrifying and that is your first thought when you see him, okay, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time to move on. So those are my rankings of the Emily Wilde books. If you're really curious, read the first book, but books two and three, I wouldn't I wouldn't rush to read it. Maybe get it from the library. Oh, next we have a Mexican Gothic, which is going in Love of My Life. This book was terrifying. I could not put this book down at like 3-4 a.m. I was up till like 5 a.m. I think reading this because I could not put this book down without reading the ending because I was terrified I would get nightmares. This is what it says on the tin. It's the Mexican Gothic book and it is horrifying and I loved every single moment of it. I will definitely be reading more Sylvia Moreno Garcia in 2026. If you're looking for a book that will just truly scare you, Mexican Gothic is right there. It's right there. Please read this. Ooh. Next up, we have The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which is going in I Kill a Spider for You. This is a middle grade fantasy by T. Kingfisher. I love T. Kingfisher. I think I've read like 5-6 of her books this year. And this is middle grade, but is pretty sweet. It has a pretty strong message that I really appreciated, and it's a cozy. Yeah, I classify this as cozy. It's a cozy fantasy book about a baker wizard. Our girl is like 14 or something. She's a baker and she's also a wizard. She does baking magic. It's sweet. It's sweet. It's funny. It's a standalone. It was just a good. It was just a good short book to whiz through. And after I finished it, I found myself just smiling, and my heart was so warm. And also, I was craving a baguette so bad. So yeah, read this, but don't. But please remember to have some bread on hand, because let me tell you, you will be craving like an entire loaf of sourdough after you finish this. To be taught if fortunate by Becky Chambers, I think. Mm, I think this is also going to go in I Kill a Spider for You. This is a novella, if I remember correctly. It's a novella set in space, but it is not, I'd say, your typical sci fi book. It very much feels like an academic research diary, but is set in space and the future. There's a lot of like research talk. We get a lot of descriptions about preparing to go out and gather data, or there's a lot of stuff about the process of gathering and classifying data. But even though I'm not remotely interested in that, just because the characters in this book were so passionate about space exploration, it also made me passionate about it while I was reading this book. And it's just a very introspective book. It doesn't really have a huge overarching plot or anything. It's actually pretty yeah, it's honestly just 70% vibes, maybe 20% plot, but it was a good book if you have a lot of just thoughts about space and, philosophical sort of introspections about the concept of space and how small we are as humans in this whole wide in the incredible expanse that is the universe. Read this book. Read this book. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it's pretty short. So, okay, next up we have books 2 and 3 in the Shades of Magic trilogy. I read book 1 in 2024, so only 2 and 3 are here. Yeah, I'm gonna put book 2, which I cannot remember the title of. I am so sorry, but I'm gonna put book 2 in Lukewarm is Still Warm and books 3 in I Kill a Spider for You. Oh, nope, sorry. Because book 2 is a tournament book, and I do not like tournament arcs. It's just like a personal pet peeve trope of mine. I don't really enjoy that. I don't really enjoy tournament arcs. I say like I don't have a 5-star rated tournament book that will come up later in this ranking video, but yeah, just book 2 came across as very YA, like on the younger side of YA for me. There was a lot of I'm not like other girls, which is very much, and it's very much a book of its time. But book 3, I, I quite enjoyed. I thought the ending was good. I thought it wrapped up the whole trilogy in a nice little bow. There were some good action scenes. I liked how each character arc concluded. So book 3 is going in I Kill a Spider for You, and book 2 is in Lukewarm is Still Warm. Ooh, next up we have a Dream Thieves, which is the second book in the Raven Boys trilogy. This is going in Love of My Life. Love of My Life. Because I read this in like May, I think, maybe even April, but I still think about this book almost every single day. It is living in my mind rent free. It is so good, and genuinely, I think the most realistic portrayal of teenagers that I've seen in any YA book ever. Like, there are times where I will be reading this book and come across just a thought that the characters have, and I will just get goosebumps because that was like the exact same thoughts I had when I was the age of the characters in this book. It's just so well done. The relationships of this, the relationships, the plot, the characters, the magic, just how much they love each other in this book. The Raven Boys are already so famous in their own right, so I won't go on anymore. But I love them. I love them, and I need to finish the series in 2026. I need to. I need to. I'm making a promise to myself. I need to finish this series. Okay. Next up we have Chalice of the Gods, which is a Percy Jackson book, and I am gonna put this in lukewarm is still warm. I read this mostly for childhood nostalgia and sort of a loyalty to Percy Jackson, and it was a good time seeing our favorite characters again. But I at this point I think I have aged out of the series a little bit, so I don't think I'll be continuing anymore. Next up, we have The Executioners 3. This is going in I Kill a Spider for You. This is X-Files meets Gilmore Girls, I think it is. Yeah. It's set in the like 90s, 80s maybe. I'm not really sure. It's a murder mystery in a small town. It's set near Halloween. I read this in around October, and it is the perfect Halloween book. It has a bit of a fantastical element. There's a pretty cute romance in it. I like the main characters. I liked our main character's best friend, which sometimes side characters in these sort of small town books can be a bit annoying, but I genuinely liked most of the characters in this book, and the mystery was intriguing, and there were some scenes that actually felt spooky. This is YA, so, and I believe that so far it is a standalone. Next up, Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett. This is going in, of course, love of my life. This is a Macbeth retelling, but also not. You do not need to know Shakespeare to read this. It's of course it's a Discworld book. It's so funny. It's so amazing, and I'm always in awe of the political and social commentary that Terry Pratchett somehow always manages to sneak in amidst the chaos of his books. Yeah, I love this. I love this, and I am so eager to continue reading more Discworld books. But of course, we're not getting any more, so I'm trying my best to be patient and sort of ration them out, so I don't run out of them too quickly. But Discworld, highly recommend. Weird Sisters is a pretty good place to start, I'd say. And our next book is Audition for the Fox, and this is going in. I think this is gonna go in lukewarm is still warm. This is a novella, and honestly, I kind of wish this was a full length book. We could have used at least 100 more pages. The magic system in this was very interesting. The world building, is set in a world that just has like a bunch of animal gods. That was, and some of the gods we did get to see, they were all very interesting and fresh characters, and the plot was also something new, something I'd never really seen before, and there was a whole like history and and different world and different different cultures mentioned in the story. But once again, it was too short to properly explore everything that was thrown at us. It was good, but I just wish it was longer. Ooh, Frederick Backman's My Friends. This is going in love of my life. This was my first Frederick Backman book. This man, I do not know what sort of magic this man is putting in his books, but I was tearing up at page 15. I started tearing up at page 15, and I cannot stop just like crying and being so emotional until the very last page of this book. This Frederick Backman's books are truly something. My Friends is amazing. It is heartbreaking, but in a good way. It breaks your heart and mends it back together stronger. I love this book. I am definitely going to be reading more Frederick Backman books this year. Okay, our next book is Oxford Social Club, and I think I'm gonna put this in. Sure, I see it because this book was so interesting. Just the initial setup of it. It's set in I think I think Oxford in the 90s, and we follow both Korean American FBI agents, North Korean spies stationed in Oxford, and just like an immigrant slash maybe not an immigrant, just somebody from Seoul who has decided to set up a soju place, to set up a restaurant called the Oxford Soju Place in Oxford. And so these three sort of like factions of characters start to converge on each other, and we slowly but surely see how their stories up until this point of the plot that happens in this book, we see how all of their stories have sort of led up to this moment. And it was very interesting. The setting, the setup, the characters, they were all very interesting. And I don't think I've ever really heard of a North Korean spy centered book that's been written in English before. Obviously there's quite a few pieces of media written in Korean or being made here in Korea, but this was the first time I saw a book covering something like this published in sort of the Western world, and so that was very very new for me. And like the overall plot was, the setup was, like I keep saying, the setup was interesting, but I think the execution was just lacking a bit. Characters were introduced and we got to build a relationship with them and we got to learn their story, but then they were just sort of like, their stories were, let's say, unceremoniously concluded. So yeah, if you're looking for an interesting book about, you know, Korean spies, North Korean spies, and the tension between the two countries, and if anything I've said about the plot of this book interests you, pick this up. But on the back of the book it says it's supposed to be a spy book. Don't go into it expecting like amazing espionage. Like this does not have an amazing espionage plot, but it is an interesting read from a sort of political and social commentary standpoint. Okay, so that's that. And okay, the Fireborn Blade. The Fireborn Blade, where should I put this? I'm gonna put this in question marks, actually. This is a novella. This is a sapphic fantasy novella about dragon slaying, which is, on the tin, all that I want. Everything that I need in life and want, it is the description of this book. But for some reason, this just left me disappointed. I don't know what was really lacking in this. And honestly, I think this book would have also benefited from 100 more pages, because I left this feeling pretty unsatisfied. The magic system, I would have loved some more explanation of it. There's also some like royal family drama thing going on, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it's not royal family drama, but I definitely remember there being some political intrigue into it. But because it's a novella, we just sort of skim over the conflict and resolution, and I would have loved to just dive deeper into this world and really sink my teeth into the characters and the plot of this whole thing. So that is going in question marks. A bit of a disappointment. Next up, we have To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Ross. This is a sequel to When Among Crows, which I also read this year. When Among Crows is going in Love of My Life. To Clutch a Razor is going in I Kill a Spider for You. But I will say I probably have to reread this book, To Clutch a Razor, because I read this in the midst of a bad reading slump, and that mindset definitely impacted my reading experience of this book. Actually, yeah. I'm gonna put To Clutch a Razor here for now, but I am going to reread this year, and I will update you if my ranking changes in any way. But When Among Crows and To Clutch a Razor, these are both urban fantasy books. The first one is set in Chicago, the second in Poland, I believe. It is, like I said, urban fantasy, which is one of, if not my favorite genre. I just love it so much. I think it's so much fun. This urban fantasy as a setting is always just so exciting to me. But anyway, this series specifically pulls on a lot of Polish and Slavic mythology, and there is some really just tragic, but also just tragic and romantic and beautiful relationships going on, both familial and romantic relationships. Um, in both When Among Crows, but also into Clutch a Razor, and in the sequel specifically, there's a lot of talk about, oh, what should you do is if your family is just evil and you don't want to be evil, but like it's also your family. Your family's evil, but they're still your family, and you still love them. What do you do in that situation? And so the plot centering around that conflict was very interesting, and so was just like generally what all of our characters got up to in these books. Oh, also these are novellas, which feels insane because Veronica Ross fit in so much in so little. Oh, also, like 40% of the reason why When Among Crows is in the tier of Love of My Life is because of one specific scene. The bathroom scene in When Among Crows, the bathroom scene, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. Probably the best description of just tension, romantic sexual tension that I have read in a long time. That one single scene lives in my head rent free. I think about it all the time. The writing in this is so good. It's so good. Please read this. Please read this. It's amazing. I really need to reread To Clutch Razor. Okay, next up we have Small Boat, and I believe this was actually either nominated or actually won the International Booker Prize a few years ago. But I'm gonna put this in. Sure, I see it, and honestly, I think this is mostly because of me. Like it's not the book, it's me, because this is a litfic. This is very much a litfic book, and I don't read a lot of litfic. I don't really enjoy the genre personally, and I appreciated the book for what it was because it's centered on this very specific incident, and it covers that with a lot of empathy for both the victim. It covers that one specific incident with a lot of empathy for the victims, and it was an event that I didn't know a lot about. So reading this book gave me a lot of knowledge and insight in this, and it really made me emphasize also with the people impacted by the events described in this book. I know I'm being vague. But yeah, I liked the book and I got what it was trying to say, but yeah, it was just written in a form that I don't really enjoy. So yeah, this is going in. Sure, I see it, but I do recommend you pick this up. So this is also pretty short, and uh, it's a very, I think, politically important book. Pick this up. But if you don't enjoy Lithic, it might be a little hard to get through. Oh, Endling by Maria Riva. This was nominated for 2025's Booker Prize, actually. And this is going in Love of My Life. This book is insane. That is the only way to talk about it. It covers the Russia Ukraine war, but it also covers the Ukrainian sort of marriage tourism, sex tourism industry. It covers just women's rights in general. It covers messy family dynamics, and also it's metafiction. Like, there is just sort of out of nowhere a chunk of the book that is just fully meta, and it is so good. The book is so good. I devoured this. It is so good. Also, it talks about snail rights, which is something I never thought I'd be passionate about. But after reading Endling, I am now passionate about snail rights. We should protect snails. They are endangered. A lot of them are endangered, and we should protect them. But yeah, this book was amazing. Really, really just interesting in all aspects of the word. And if you are in any way, shape, or form interested in Ukraine and sort of Ukraine's culture and the war, or honestly anything about it, read this book. It was amazing, and I definitely understand why this was nominated for a Booker Prize. This was amazing, and I would love to read more of Maria Riva's other books. Okay, a bit of a mood shift. Next is Piranesi. This is going in question mark. I did not like this book. What was going on? I was told that this book had an incredibly complex and hard to get magic system, or like magical world, but if you read it and you got it, it would be amazing. What? It was not complex. It was not complex at all. But also, okay, where do I even start with this book? Okay, let's start here. This book did not need to be this long. If this was a short story, like below 20,000 words, I would have loved it. This was way too long. I was told that the world, the plot, the characters would be confusing and it would be like a mystery. It was not. I got it in like 30 pages. No, probably even less than 30 pages, like chapter 1 or something. This was interesting for, like I said, the first chapter, but after that, it quickly got very repetitive, both in the way that the story was told and in just like our characters' actions and our characters' narrative voice. It was very repetitive. It was quite boring for me at the end. And yeah, honestly, if you're really curious about this, read the first chapter. Maybe like a little bit of the last one, and that's just basically the entire book. Next up, we have Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is going in lukewarm is still warm, I think. The thing I love most about T. Kingfisher's books are the characters. The characters feel so real. They feel so human, but all of them are also just so funny. They're just so naturally charming and funny and magnetic. And whenever I finish a T. Kingfisher book, I feel myself not wanting to finish this story, and I want to spend more time with the characters in these books. But, and that also goes for Hemlock and Silver. I loved our main character in this book. I thought she was amazing, and I would love to be her real life friend, but just overall, this book was just sort of lacking. I can't really pinpoint what it is, but overall, I just think it sort of lacked the charm and the magnetic appeal that T. Kingfisher books have for me and what I was expecting from this book. It was fun, and the world and the plot, they were fun in concept, but I think in execution it was just a little bit lacking and a little bit disappointing. But, like I said, I loved the characters. I loved T. Kingfisher's sense of humor as always. So it is going in. Lukewarm is still warm. Mm. Next up, Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is going in. I kill a spider for you. I um I I will be first in line to watch this movie. First in line. This was so much fun. Also, I really need to read The Martian. I cannot believe that I've still not read The Martian. But Hail Mary, so much fun. It's like cozy sci-fi in a way. And also, this, yes, it is true that this book has a lot of scientific jargon, but do not be afraid of it. Andy Weir holds your hand and walks you through it. And on certain steps, Andy Weir just like straight up princess carries you over these humps of scientific information. It is not intimidating. It is not told in an intimidating and hard to understand way at all. It's just such a wonderful story. Hail Mary, loved it. Okay, next we have What Stalks the Deep, which is actually book 3 in a series, and book 2 is also here, What Feasts at Night. This is part of the Sworn Soldier series. The first book is What Moves the Dead. This is also by T. Kingfisher, and these are both going in I Kill a Spider for You, mainly for the main character, Alex Easton. Look, Alex Easton, I love you. This channel is an Alex Easton stan account. So the Sworn Soldier series is basically just sort of like a mystery of the day sort of type. They're all novellas, and they're all like gothic supernatural mysteries, and our main character is Alex Easton, who I love so much. But yeah, love this. I will say these books 2 and 3 were slightly less terrifying and less gothic feelings than book 1, What Moves the Dead, but they were still pretty scary. The mysteries were still pretty intriguing. So, if you're looking for a book with just a truly charming character plus some fun horror, mostly body horror actually, pick up the Sworn Soldier series. You will not regret it, and hopefully this world will gain one more Alex Easton fan. Okay. Oh, next we have a classic. We have Letters to a Young Poet by Maria Rilke. This is going in Sure I See It. Because this book is called Letters to a Young Poet. And that is true. But because it's a series of letters to a young poet, I thought we'd be talking about mostly poetry and writing and creativity, but there's actually a lot of talk about sex in here and Maria Rilke's views on like sex and love. And they're not like problematic or bad. But yeah, it just wasn't really what I was expecting. I really like the books. I really like the parts that talked about poetry and writing and just growing up as a creative. But yeah, the other parts was just a little bit unexpected and not really what I was looking for, which is why it isn't Sure I See It. I saw the good parts. I liked the good no, not the good parts. There were parts that I liked, there were parts that I didn't like. Next up, we have A Stonehenge, also by T. Kingfisher. I told you that I read a lot of T. Kingfisher last year. I told you this is going in Lukewarm is Still Warm. This is a fairy tale sort of retelling, and it was fine. Once again, T. Kingfisher, the characters were charming, but yeah, it wasn't really anything special. It didn't really stick in my mind. It wasn't super memorable to me, which is why it is going in lukewarm and still warm. Next up, Alchemy of Secrets. This is going in question marks. This was my stuff. This was okay. This was my first Stephanie Garber book, and I don't know if this is just her usual writing style or if is this book specifically. But what was going on with this book? Like, what was going on with this? This book felt like a half baked cake with some really nice frosting, and by which I mean the plot, the characters, the world. None of it was ever fully explained. We never got character motivations. We never really got to build a true relationship with any of the characters. The world, the magic, never fully explained. But it did have some cool details, like, oh, all the old Hollywood legends, old Hollywood myths, a lot of Art Deco descriptions, which is why I didn't DNF this book ultimately. But yeah, the details of this book, the amazing cover, the plot synopsis on the back, all of these hooked me in, and made me dig my fork into an extremely beautiful cake, and it turned out to be half baked inside. This book was disappointing. Right. Slashing Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion. This is, where should I put this? Where should I put this? I'm gonna put this in Sure I See It. I like this book. I like this, maybe even close to love this, but it isn't really a writing style that I enjoy. I appreciate the book for what it is. I appreciate the feat of journalism, the force that Joan Didion was. And I highlighted so much of this book. I loved so much of it. There were so many lines that were just so poetic and spoke to me on a so deep level. But also the writing style is just, once again, not one that I really enjoy. And the subject matter, America in the 60s, it wasn't really anything that I was interested in. And the book didn't really make me interested in the subject matter itself either. Yeah, this was something, just a whole bunch of mixed emotions about this book, and there is, for me, truly no middle. Some parts of it I loved, some parts of it I really didn't, and I sort of had to slog through. But I don't regret reading this book at all, and I am definitely going to read more Joan Didion in the future. But yeah, just a lot of mixed thoughts about this book, which is why it is here in Sure I See It. I see why this book is so popular. I see why this is such a staple, but also wasn't really my cup of tea specifically. Next we have A Mirror Mended, which is a sequel to A Spindle Splintered. These are by Alexi Harrow. They're both fairy tale retellings. They're novellas. I'm gonna put A Spindle Splintered in Lukewarm Still Warm and A Mirror Mended and I Kill a Spider for You. A Spindle Splintered was fun, but it wasn't really anything special. But A Mirror Mended, I really liked the romance in this book. The ending was a bit bittersweet, but the romance was just sweet. I liked it. There's a bit of like an enemies to lovers, misunderstood sort of trope in here. And for what it was, and for how short it was, it managed to execute a full relationship arc pretty well. Next up we have None Shall Sleep, which is going in also I'd Kill a Spider for You. This is apparently Silence of the Lambs inspired. I have not watched Silence of the Lambs, but I liked this book. This is about teen serial killer this book is about teen criminal profilers, and it's also set in like the 80s or 90s, and we have teen profilers but also teen serial killers, and it's a thriller, I believe, and it is thrilling at times. It's a YA, and for a YA, I'll say it's pretty scary, it's pretty thrilling, and the whole mystery of it all was pretty exciting. It didn't like rock my world or anything, but I read this pretty quick. It caught my attention. It caught my attention and held it. I like the characters. The serial killer character was actually really interesting, and yeah, there's a sequel, but you do not need to read the sequel. It's perfect as a standalone. So yeah, if you're looking actually for an actually thrilling YA mystery thriller, None Shall Sleep. I recommend it. Next up, we have A Forgery of Fate. Ooh, mm, you know what? This is gonna go in Love of My Life. A Forgery of Fate is one of those books that makes you feel like you are in a fairy tale or a Ghibli movie. This was just truly the perfect form of escapism for me. It made me escape from this world for a couple days. It was amazing. It was a pretty good story. The romance was also nice. There's like an enemies to friends to lovers romance in here, and it's pretty slow burn, but it was really well done. I liked both the main male and female characters. They were pretty cute together. And yeah, Forger of Fate, I loved this. Also, it made me crave noodles so much. So much. The main character is constantly eating noodles, and it made me crave noodles the entire time I was reading this. Next up, we have another Love of My Life book, The Raven Scholar. This book blew up in book talk this year, and I know what I said when I was ranking the Shades of Magic books. I said that I don't like a tournament arc, and that is true. And The Raven Scholar is mostly a tournament book, and I loved it. That is also true. Because the thing about this book is, on the surface, it's just like your run of the mill tournament political intrigue book. But no, it's not. It's so much more than that. It is about gods and just divinity and what it means to be a divine being, or can people become gods, or what power do gods truly have. It explores all of those questions in such a fun, exciting way. I loved it so much. And also this has like a middle yeah, I think the main character is in like her 30s or something, which is not something you normally see in a lot of fantasy books. So I really appreciated that setting also. And yeah, this book is just so exciting. I it's over 600 pages, and I read this in under 48 hours. It's just that good. You cannot let go of this book once you start reading it. It's so exciting. It's just action after action after action, and the world is so interesting. Like I said, there's this whole thing about gods and divine beings in this world, and I cannot wait for the sequel. Next up, we have The Teller of Small Fortunes, and this is going in lukewarm is still warm. This is a cozy fantasy, is mostly a road trip sort of book, and it's about a teller of small fortunes. There's a bit of a found family trope going on. It's cozy, but not too cozy. There are still some stakes, some plot going on. And yeah, I liked it. It was good for what it was, but yeah, it wasn't really anything special or memorable. It was just a nice, cozy fantasy book. Oh, next up is Gallant. This is also going in lukewarm. Maybe sure I see it. You know what? I'm gonna put this in lukewarm. This book, while it wasn't great, it also kind of got me out of a reading slump. So, I don't think I can. I don't think I can put it in. Sure, I see it. Gallant. It was. It was honestly what I expected. Yeah, it's a book about mirror realities. It's a book about where in the real world it's normal, but in the other world, oh, the place is actually really spooky in the other world, and there's evil beings living in it. It's a very typical and sort of tried and true world building, world setting. And yeah, it wasn't really anything special, but it was still a good time. I still enjoyed myself. It was sufficiently spooky, I think. Yeah. Ooh, also, I have the physical version of this, and in certain parts of it, the pages actually changed color to black, which was a detail that I really liked. I just think it's cool whenever books sort of like change their actual physical format depending on what's happening in the plot. So yeah, I just thought that was a cool detail, and Gallant in and of itself wasn't super memorable or amazing, but it was still a good time. I don't regret reading it or anything. Ooh, next, A Sorceress Comes to Call, once again by T. Kingfisher. This is going in I Kill a Spider for You. This book is a Goose Girl retelling, which is the first time I've seen that. Wait, no. There's another Goose Girl retelling I read last year. Why is it not on this list? I'll add that later. I'll add that later. But anyway, a sorceress comes to call. Of course, classic T. Kingfisher is spooky. There's some body horror. There's just horrors and horrors of lovable characters. The characters are so charming and magnetic. I'd love to be everybody's friend. Like one of this book is dual POV, and one of the POV characters, like a woman in her 40s or 50s, I think, and her entire friend group. I love them. I would love to be her friend. And yeah, Sorcerer's Comes Call. This was so good. This was so much fun. There's also a pretty sort of terrifying portrayal of, yes, magic and body horror, but also of just like a very manipulating and abusive family dynamic, and that dynamic just filled the whole book with so much tension. And I think it was a good sort of mirror to the magical horror by showing the actual real life horror that can be abusive family situations. So yeah, this was very well done. I loved honestly most things about it. I think the pacing was a little off in the middle, but overall I loved it. Okay, home stretch. We only have a couple, well, maybe not, a bit more than a couple, but we have less than 10 books left. Oh, also, I added in the book, the other Goose Girl retelling I said I read last year that I somehow managed to forget on this list. But okay, back to ranking. We have the Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. I believe the title is. This is going in I Kill a Spider for You. This is cozy fantasy. This was so heartwarming. Once again, I feel like I'm saying that word a lot today. This has some found family. This has some interesting magic. This has a really cute romance. The main male and female characters, I loved them both separately as their own characters and their relationship dynamic. I loved all of it. And even though this is a cozy fantasy, there were actual stakes. There were quite a lot of, I think, conflicts and problems and like relationships and stuff. And yeah, this was pretty good. I read this in like just a couple days, maybe in like 2 days or so. So even if it's cozy, it's not boring at all. But because it is a cozy fantasy, at the end of the day, it will leave you feeling warm and gooey inside. Next up, we have the Floating World, and this is going in. Sure, I see it, because I don't know what's about this book. Because I like the characters, I like the world, I like how it drew from Korean mythology, but just I don't know, something about the world build, just something about the writing, just threw me off a little. I think because I read this earlier in the year and I don't really remember fully what it was like. But I think I remember it being a lot of tell not show. Please, it might be just entirely wrong on that, so, but yeah, The Floating World, this was fine. If you enjoyed this author's other book, The Girl Beneath the Sea, I think you'd also like this one. Yeah, interesting use of Korean mythology too. Okay, next, Summer War by Naomi Novik. Uh, this is going in lukewarm is still warm. This is a novella, not anything special. It's about like fairies and a girl who gets sort of stuck in the fairy world. Not anything special. The story played out like how I expected it to play out, but it was still pretty nice. This was actually the first time reading anything by Naomi Novik, and I quite liked her writing style. So I think this year I'll definitely be picking up some of her other books. Maybe. Okay, next we have Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is going in. I'd kill a spider for you. This was fun. This was like, I think, Brandon Sanderson's version of a cozy fantasy. And actually, I think in mood, this was quite similar to Howl's Moving Castle. There's that similar feeling of whimsy and sort of just imaginative fantasy going on. It just truly feels like something you would daydream about when you were in school and it was like a long day or something. But yeah, Trust of the Emerald Sea in classic Brandon Sanderson fashion. The world building, of course, it is masterfully done. The characters are lovable. Tress, our main character, I loved her. I loved the journey she went on, both the literal, actual journey on the Emerald Sea and her character arc. I loved it both. There was like a kind of twist at the end, which which was unexpected, but not but I didn't dislike it. It was pretty good. Okay, next up, our last Tea Kingfisher, Nettle and Bone. This is going in. Ooh, where should this go? Nettle and Bone is gonna go in. I Kill a Spider for You. This is not a fairy tale retelling, but it plays with a lot of classic fairy tale tropes, so it honestly just feels like a fairy tale, an original fairy tale. It's pretty short, if I remember correctly, under 300 pages, I think, but yeah, there is a lot of heartwarming storylines in this. Why can I not speak today? Once again, the characters, I love them. The relationship, amazing. Yeah, Nettle and Bone, pretty fun. There's like a demonic chicken in this, which I liked. I always love a good animal sidekick. Nettle and Bone, also pretty good. Okay, next up, Starling House. This is going in question mark. Alexi Harrow, I always like her novellas and her short stories, but I think her novels tend to fall a bit short for me. I don't really know why, but Starling House was just predictable. It was predictable. It's a spooky house story. There's really nothing special about it. I was waiting for something special to happen, but it didn't come. It was very typical. So, yeah, Starling House. And last but not least, we have Little Thieves. This is the other Goose Girl retelling that I read this year, and this is gonna go in Love of My Life, actually. At the start of this book, if you read this, you might think, oh, this is just a funny YA fantasy. But no, it's not. It has so much heart. It has so much just like tragedy explored in a really sensitive and empathetic way while just being extremely funny. Our main character in this book is a full-on comedian. She is amazing. And the romance in this is also quite nice. There's like a bit of a rivals to lovers thing going on. There were some characters that I did not like, that the book tried to convince me to like, but I didn't. I did not at all. But yeah, overall, I loved this. However, I have seen some mixed reviews about the sequels, so I'm still kind of on the fence about whether I should read the sequels of the series or not. Because honestly, it stands on its own. The ending was pretty, closed and shut. I could leave this as a standalone and feel pretty satisfied. But yeah, that's just for me to think about. But if you have read the sequels, please comment saying whether you liked them or not. I'd love to see your opinion. But yeah, Little Thieves in and of itself, I loved it. It's just so much fun. It's what I'm always craving when I say, "Oh, I want to read a YA fantasy." It's a book that is fun and fast paced, but also just heartwarming in the end. It explores the hardships that young adults tend to go through, and it explores them in a very sympathetic manner to these teenagers. But and also at the same time, it manages to be just an exciting adventure. And yeah, I loved Little Thieves, and it's honestly feels very satisfying for our last ranking to be in Love of My Life. And yeah, those are the 53 books I read in 2025 all ranked. Looking at this all laid out, I think I had a pretty good reading year. Yeah, it's quite top heavy, and honestly, even the books in this bottom tier I didn't like hate. They were a bit disappointing. I didn't really like them, but I don't really regret reading them or anything. I don't think they were a waste of my time or anything. And yeah, honestly, everything from this tier onwards, I'd recommend to people. Maybe not to everyone, but to certain people, sure. And yeah, I just hope that 2026, my reading in 2026 will be as good as my reading in 2025. Of course, I hope it's better. I hope I read even more amazing and new and exciting books. But yeah, 2025, looking at this, it was a great reading year. I met some great authors that I will be will definitely be reading more of this year, and I started some new series that I will definitely be continuing. I finished some series. I read a lot of standalones. I read a lot of novellas, and yeah, 2025 I loved a lot of what I read, and even the books I didn't really like, I still enjoyed my time reading them. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Bye, and maybe next time I think. Because this is sort of a looking back sort of book video, I think my next video will be about my reading plans for 2026, maybe an anticipated books list or something. Yeah. So, what do you think about my ranking? Are there any books that you disagree with, with the way I rank them? Are there any rankings that you agree with on me? Are there some books that you think I should read? Are there some books that you think I shouldn't read? Please tell me all your thoughts on in the comments. Oh, and if there are some books that you read in 2025 that you loved, please talk about them. I'd love to hear about what other people read last year. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.